I walked in on my husband and my sister, so I let them confess without saying a word. I didn't scream. That's what shocks people the most when they hear my story. When I opened the bedroom door, time slowed in a strange way. Mark stood frozen beside the bed. Lily was wrapped in the sheets, her eyes wide with fear. The air felt thick, like it didn't want me there. For a few seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Something inside me went quiet. Not broken, not empty, just calm. Mark's face lost all its color. Lily started shaking, her hands clutching the blanket like it could save her. They waited for tears. They waited for shouting. They waited for me to fall apart. I didn't. I looked at them long enough for the fear to settle in. Then I closed the door gently. The click was soft, but it echoed inside my chest. I walked down the hallway without rushing. Each step felt steady, even though my heart was racing. I went into the guest room, locked the door, and sat on the bed. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I stared at the wall and breathed slowly. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the moment in my head. Every time I saw their faces again, my anger didn't explode. It sharpened. The ceiling fan spun quietly as I lay awake, staring into the dark. My thoughts moved slowly, carefully, like pieces lining up in my mind. I realized something before the sun came up. Yelling would help them, not me. Crying would make me small. It would give them relief. I didn't want that. I wanted control. So I made a decision. I would say nothing. I would watch. I would wait. And when the time was right, the truth would speak for me. When morning came, I got out of bed like it was any other day. I brushed my teeth. I fixed my hair. I chose calm over chaos with every small action. My reflection looked normal, but my eyes felt different, sharper. In the kitchen, Mark was already there. He held his coffee with shaking hands. He couldn't look at me. When I said good morning, his shoulders stiffened. Morning, he whispered. Lily wasn't there. I smiled, and that seemed to scare him more than anger ever could. At breakfast, I talked about simple things. The weather, work, a show we watched together. Mark answered in short sentences, watching my face closely. He waited for a crack. None came. After breakfast, I kissed Mark on the cheek before leaving for work. His body froze when I did it. I felt his breath stop, just for a second. That's when I knew my silence was already working. At work, I focused harder than usual. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I didn't need advice or comfort. I needed clarity. All day, my mind replayed the scene in the bedroom. The timing, the looks, the lies that suddenly made sense. That night, I cooked Mark's favorite dinner. He thanked me too quickly. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Lily didn't come over, and I didn't ask why. Over the next few days, I became careful. I listened more. I watched more. I noticed how often Mark checked his phone and turned the screen away from me. I noticed how quiet Lily became around me. They thought I was in shock. They were wrong. One night, while Mark slept beside me, I remembered the cloud account we shared. He had set it up years ago and never changed the password. I opened my laptop and logged in. Photos, messages, dates. I didn't rush. I saved everything. I took screenshots and backed them up twice. They talked about me like I was already gone. They were careless. People always are when they think they're safe. I didn't feel guilty collecting the evidence. I felt focused. Each message showed me how long it had been happening. Each date lined up with excuses Mark had given me. Late meetings, quick trips, headaches, lies stacked neatly on top of each other. By the end of the third week, I had more than enough proof. Still, I said nothing. Mark started relaxing again. He laughed more. Lily visited the house like nothing was wrong, though she avoided my eyes. I helped her anyway. I reviewed her resume. I practiced interview questions with her in the living room. She took my help without question. That told me everything. Trust is dangerous when it's misplaced. I learned that while watching them grow comfortable. They thought the storm had passed. They thought my silence meant weakness. That's when I helped them trust me even more. I encouraged Mark to apply for a promotion at work. It paid more and came with respect, but it also required a strict morality review. I told him he deserved it. He believed me. I suggested Lily move in with us for a while. She said it would make things easier. I smiled and agreed. Comfort makes people careless. The house felt full once Lily moved in. Too full. I kept my routine steady. I cooked. I cleaned. I listened. I watched the way their voices softened when they spoke to each other. I noticed the looks they thought I didn't see. One evening, while we were setting the table together, Mark squeezed my hand. His smile looked hopeful. "I'm glad we're okay," he said. I smiled back. "We are." That was the moment, I decided. A few days later, I planned a dinner. Nothing fancy, just family. Mark's parents, my parents, a few close relatives, small enough to feel safe, normal enough to feel harmless. Everyone agreed easily. As I sent the invitations, my hands stayed steady. I didn't feel nervous. I felt ready. Every detail was already in place. Every screenshot was saved. Every timeline was clear. Rachel, my closest friend, noticed something was different about me when we talked on the phone. "You sound calm," she said carefully. "I am," I replied. She didn't ask more. She never pushed. That night, as I lay in bed beside Mark, I stared at the ceiling and counted my breaths. Truth didn't need shouting. It only needed the right moment. The week before, the dinner moved slowly, like time was stretching on purpose. Mark grew more confident each day. He joked again. He kissed my forehead before work. Lily stayed longer in shared spaces, laughing too loudly, acting like she belonged. I let it happen. Inside, my mind stayed sharp. I checked my files every night. Screenshots were labeled by date and time. Messages were backed up in 2 places. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was missing. One afternoon, Mark came home excited. He told me his promotion interview went well. He said the review process was almost finished. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. I smiled. "I know." Lily watched us from the couch. Her face tightened for just a second before she looked away. Guilt has a way of leaking out when people think they're winning. That night, Rachel came over. We sat on the porch while the sun went down. She studied my face like she was reading something between the lines. "You're different," she said quietly. "I had to be," I answered. She nodded. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop." I didn't explain. I didn't need to. Silence had protected me this far, and the dinner was only days away. The night before the dinner, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I felt peace, but because everything was ready. When morning came, I woke with a strange calm, like standing at the edge of something important. I cleaned the house carefully, not in a nervous way, in a final way. Lily offered to help, but her hands shook as she folded napkins. Mark avoided my eyes, though his voice sounded cheerful. He thought the dinner meant normalcy. He thought it meant forgiveness. People see what they want to see. That afternoon, I dressed simply. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. I wanted the focus on the truth, not me. I placed my phone in my bag and checked it one last time. Everything was there. By evening, cars filled the driveway. Laughter drifted through the house. Parents hugged. Relatives talked over each other. The room felt warm and familiar. Mark poured drinks. Lily stayed close to the kitchen wall. Halfway through dinner, as plates were cleared and conversations softened, I stood up. The room slowly went quiet. No one expected me to speak. That was exactly why it worked. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't raise my voice. I told a story. I talked about marriage, about trust, about how loyalty isn't proven in big moments, but in small choices made every day. I spoke calmly, like I was sharing a lesson I had learned a long time ago. Mark's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Lily's face drained of colour. I said betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people who know where you keep your pain. Sometimes it comes from family. The room felt tight. No one spoke. Then I placed my phone on the table. I slid it forward. Screenshots filled the screen. Messages, dates, words that couldn't be misunderstood. I didn't explain them. I didn't need to. Truth speaks clearly when it's given space. My mother covered her mouth. Mark's father leaned back, stunned. Lily started crying, shaking so hard her chair scraped the floor. Mark opened his mouth, but no sound came out. No one defended them. I sat back down and finished my drink. My hands didn't shake. My chest felt steady. For the first time since that night in the bedroom, I felt in control. The fallout didn't explode. It cut quietly. People left early. Conversations ended in whispers. No one yelled. No one chased after Mark or Lily. Disappointment filled the room, heavy and sharp. Later that night, Mark tried to talk. I told him I was tired. Lily locked herself in the guest room. I didn't knock. Within days, things started to unravel for them. Mark's promotion disappeared without explanation. A week later, his job did too. His company didn't tolerate ethical risks. They didn't need drama. The proof spoke clearly. Lily moved out soon after. Our parents didn't argue. They didn't shout. Their voices just sounded different around her. Careful, distant. I didn't step in. I had already met with a lawyer. Quietly, cleanly. I filed for divorce, without scenes or threats. Just papers. Just signatures. Mark begged. Once. Then twice. Then stopped. I walked through the house slowly, choosing what mattered. I packed with intention. I left memories behind, without regret. People asked how I stayed calm. I didn't tell them the truth. That calm wasn't natural. It was chosen. The divorce papers arrived months later, plain and official. No last-minute apologies came with them. Mark had realized too late that I left long before the law made it real. Friends stopped calling him. Invitations disappeared. Truth traveled faster than excuses ever could. I ran into Lily once at a grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her voice shook when she said my name. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know," I replied. "I forgive you," I added. "I just don't forget." Then I walked away. That moment felt better than yelling ever would have. Healing wasn't soft. Some nights I cried alone. Some mornings I felt powerful. Some days I felt both at once. I learned that healing doesn't move in a straight line. Rachel stayed close through everything. She never rushed me, never pushed me to explain. "You handled it with grace," she said once. I didn't feel graceful. I felt tired. But I was learning that strength doesn't always feel strong when you're carrying it. Sometimes it just feels necessary. After everything came out, silence followed me everywhere. Not the heavy kind, the clean kind. People stopped asking questions once they saw my face. I didn't look angry. I didn't look broken. That confused them. Most people expect pain to be loud. Mine wasn't. Family gatherings felt different. My parents spoke gently around me, like they were afraid I might crack. Mark's name wasn't mentioned. Lily's came up only when necessary. No one told me how to feel. That helped more than advice ever could. At night, I replayed old memories, but they felt distant, like scenes from a movie I no longer belonged to. The house felt too quiet, not peaceful, just empty. That's when I knew it was time to leave. Not because I was running away, but because staying meant holding on to something that had already let me go. I started packing slowly, carefully. Only what mattered. Clothes that felt like me. Books I loved. Small things that carried meaning. I left behind gifts that didn't fit my life anymore. Each box felt like a decision. Each decision felt like release. For the first time in a long while, I felt honest with myself. And honesty, I learned, doesn't shout. It settles in, quietly. Moving out felt strange at first. I expected pain. I expected fear. Instead, I felt light, like I'd been carrying something heavy for years without knowing it. Every step away from the house felt steady. The walls watched silently as I took my last box. They held memories, but none I wanted to inherit. I locked the door one final time and handed over the keys without looking back. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces, in quiet mornings, in deep breaths, in moments where I realized I wasn't checking my phone anymore. Some nights, I cried. Not because I missed Mark, but because I missed the version of myself who trusted easily. Other mornings, I felt proud, strong. Healing wasn't soft. It was honest. Rachel came by often. She helped me unpack. She never asked questions I didn't offer answers to. She understood that silence was part of my recovery. "You don't owe anyone closure," she said once. I believed her. I began introducing myself, without attaching my past to my name. Not someone's wife, not someone's sister, just me. And that felt like freedom. A few weeks later, Mark sent a message. It was long, too long, full of regret and explanations. He wrote about confusion and mistakes. He said he never meant to hurt me. He said he still loved me. I read it once, then I closed my phone. I didn't reply. Closure isn't always mutual. Sometimes silence is the answer. A week later, he sent another message. I didn't open it. Lily tried too. She called one afternoon, her voice shaking. She said she was sorry. She said she missed me. She said she wanted to fix things. I listened quietly. "I forgive you," I said when she finished. "But forgiveness doesn't mean access." She cried. I stayed calm. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Not because of hate, but because of history. At a family event months later, Lily broke down in front of everyone. She apologized again. Her pain filled the room. I watched, quietly. Pain doesn't disappear just because it's deserved. I didn't feel joy. I felt distance, the kind that keeps you safe. That was when I knew something important. I stopped introducing myself as someone's wife. I introduced myself as Elena. My name felt different when I said it. Lighter, stronger. I wasn't rebuilding loudly. There was no big announcement, no sudden changes on the outside. But inside, everything was shifting. I started making plans again, real ones. I updated my resume. I applied for jobs without second-guessing myself. I trusted my choices again. That felt new. Then one afternoon, an email arrived. A job offer. Another city. A fresh start. a future untouched by shared memories. I didn't hesitate. I accepted. Packing this time felt exciting, not heavy. I wasn't leaving pain behind anymore. I was walking toward possibility. Rachel hugged me tightly before I left. "You did this the right way," she said. "There was no right way," I answered. "Only my way." On my last night in town, I stood by the window and breathed deeply. The city lights flickered softly, like they were saying goodbye. I wasn't running. I was rising. The new city felt unfamiliar, but kind. The streets didn't know my history. The air felt open. I rented a small place with big windows and let sunlight fill the rooms. Each morning, I woke up without weight on my chest. I walked more. I slept better. I smiled without forcing it. Sometimes, memories still surfaced. Not sharp anymore. Just reminders of what I survived. I didn't push them away. I let them pass. Survival taught me something important. I didn't destroy them. I simply survived. And that was enough. People think strength looks loud, like shouting or revenge. Mine didn't. Mine looked like patience, like planning, like silence, used wisely. I never needed to raise my voice. They confessed, without me saying a word. As I settled into my new life, I felt something steady growing inside me. Not anger, not sadness, peace. It didn't arrive suddenly. It built slowly, choice by choice, moment by moment. I had lost a marriage. I had lost a sister I thought I knew. But I found myself again. And this time, I knew exactly who I was. Life settled into a quiet rhythm after the move. My new job kept me busy in a good way. The work mattered, and so did the people. No one knew my past unless I chose to share it. That freedom felt powerful. News from home reached me slowly. Not because people were hiding it, but because it no longer ruled my thoughts. I heard Mark was still unemployed. Friends had stopped inviting him places. Trust, once broken, has a way of changing how people see you. I didn't feel happy about it. I felt finished. Lily struggled too. She moved apartments twice in 1 year. Our parents helped, but something had changed between them. Their voices were polite now, careful. Love was still there, but respect had cracked. I stayed out of it. Distance helped me see things clearly. I realized how much of my old life had been built on effort that wasn't returned. I had mistaken endurance for love. Rachel visited one weekend. We walked through the city and talked about everything except the past. That told me how far I'd come. "You're lighter," she said. "I feel lighter," I answered. Healing wasn't loud or dramatic. It showed up in moments like this. One afternoon, an envelope arrived with familiar handwriting. "Mark." I didn't open it right away. I placed it on the table and went for a walk. I wanted to be sure. Not about him, but about me. When I came back, I opened the letter calmly. It was apologetic, predictable. He wrote about regret, therapy, and understanding what he lost. He asked for forgiveness. He asked to talk. I folded the letter and put it away. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I was done. Some answers don't need words. Silence had already said everything I needed to say. Weeks later, Lily sent a message. Shorter than before. Softer. She said she hoped I was okay. She didn't ask for anything. That felt honest. I replied once. I told her I wished her healing. Nothing more, nothing less. After that, the messages stopped. At night, I sometimes thought about the old house. The shared routines, the plans that never came true. They didn't hurt anymore. They just felt finished. And that was peace. As months passed, my confidence grew in quiet ways. I trusted my instincts again. I made choices without doubting myself. I laughed easily. I slept deeply. I decorated my apartment slowly. Every piece had meaning. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt borrowed from a life that wasn't mine anymore. At work, I was offered more responsibility. My boss told me she admired how steady I was under pressure. I smiled at that. She had no idea how much pressure I had already survived. One evening, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because she looked different, but because she looked sure of herself. I thought about the night I walked into that bedroom. The fear, the shock, the silence. I realized something then. That moment didn't break me. It woke me up. I had chosen control instead of chaos, patience instead of panic, dignity instead of destruction. Not everyone understood my choices, but I did. And that was enough. Strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just stands quietly and refuses to fall. I returned home for a family gathering months later. I felt ready, calm, prepared. Lily was there. So was Mark, only briefly. He left early. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Lily looked nervous when she saw me. Older, somehow. Softer. We spoke privately for a few minutes. She apologized again, without excuses this time. I listened. I hope one day we can be sisters again, she said. I met her eyes. Maybe, but not today. She nodded. She understood. That felt like closure. The rest of the visit was quiet, comfortable. My parents smiled more easily around me now. They didn't worry the way they used to. On my last night there, I sat alone outside and looked up at the sky. I realized how far I had traveled, not in miles, but in strength. I hadn't rebuilt my life out of anger. I rebuilt it out of honesty. That mattered. When I left the next morning, I didn't look back. Some chapters end softly, and that's how you know they're finished. Back in my city, I unpacked my bag and returned to my routine. Work, walks, quiet evenings. A life built carefully, with intention. I no longer waited for apologies. I no longer needed explanations. I understood now that closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you choose. I chose peace. Looking back, I knew one thing for certain. I didn't destroy them. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need shouting. I didn't need to prove anything. I simply survived. And that survival changed everything. Silence had been my strength. Patience had been my shield. Truth had spoken when I let it. People still ask how I stayed so calm. I tell them this because losing control would have meant losing myself. And I had already lost enough. I walked away with my dignity, with my voice, with my future. And that was the real victory. Time kept moving, even when I wasn't watching it anymore. Seasons changed, habits shifted. Life didn't rush me. It let me grow at my own pace. I stopped measuring healing by how little I hurt. I measured it by how often I felt present, how often I laughed without thinking, how often I chose myself without guilt. I made new friends in the city, not deep ones at first, just easy ones. Coffee conversations, shared walks, simple joy. They didn't know my story, and I didn't feel the need to explain it. That felt like freedom. Sometimes, when I was alone, I thought about how quiet everything had become. Silence used to scare me. Now it felt clean, honest. I realized something important. I hadn't just survived betrayal. I had survived becoming someone I didn't recognize anymore. That mattered more than what Mark or Lily lost. I didn't win because they fell. I won because I stood. And I stayed standing. One evening, Rachel called me after work. We talked about nothing important. Weather, plans, life. Before hanging up, she paused. "I'm proud of you," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For not letting it harden you." I thought about that after the call ended. I hadn't chosen silence to punish anyone. I had chosen it to protect myself. Somewhere along the way, that choice became strength. I still believed in love, just not the kind that asks you to disappear to keep it alive. I believed in honesty, even when it costs you everything. Most of all, I believed in listening to that quiet voice inside the one that told me not to scream, not to beg, not to break. That voice saved me. Some nights, I still replayed the sound of the bedroom door closing, the soft click, the moment everything changed. It didn't haunt me anymore. It reminded me. That was the moment I chose myself. A year passed. I marked the date without ceremony. No sadness, no anger, just awareness. It felt important to acknowledge how far I had come. I took the day off work and walked through the city slowly. I watched people rush past each other, lost in lives I would never know. It reminded me how small one story is and how powerful it can still be. I sat in a quiet park and breathed deeply. I thought about the woman I had been before, the one who trusted easily, the one who loved without question. I didn't judge her. She did the best she could with what she knew. And the woman I was now, she was careful, calm, grounded, not closed, just awake. Growth doesn't erase who you were, it builds on it. I stood up, brushed the grass from my clothes, and walked home. The future didn't feel scary anymore. It felt open. Sometimes, people think my story is about revenge. It isn't. It's about restraint. It's about understanding that silence can be louder than screaming when it's chosen, not forced. It's about knowing when to act and when to wait. I didn't destroy them. I let truth do what it always does when given space. People revealed themselves without me pushing, and when they did, I stepped aside. That's not weakness. That's clarity. I learned that dignity isn't something others give you. It's something you protect. And once you protect it, everything else starts to fall into place. I didn't need closure from them. I closed the door myself, just like I did that first night, gently, on purpose. People still ask me how I stayed so calm. I tell them the truth. I didn't scream because I knew screaming would cost me myself. I didn't beg because I knew begging wouldn't change who they were. I didn't fight because the fight wasn't mine. I walked in on betrayal, and I walked out with my future. They confessed without me saying a word. That's the part people remember. But the part that matters most is this. I survived. Not loudly, not violently, not dramatically. I survived with patience, with silence, with control. And in the end, that changed everything. I didn't lose my voice. I found it. And it spoke when it mattered most.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe to Revenge with Avenix for more powerful stories like this.